All right, part two. Last time we looked at capillaries and arteries. Today it's all about veins. So arteries go away from the heart. So as you might expect, veins carry blood to the heart. So think artery away and veins to. The VT, vet, TV, I don't know, that doesn't work as well. Artery away. Just like arteries branch into smaller blood vessels called arterioles, so too do veins. But remember, the veins are actually coming from the capillaries. So they actually merge from smaller blood vessels called venules, and then the venules merge from capillaries. But just like arterioles, venules are kind of those intermediate-sized blood vessels, the Tracy Avenues, the Vernons, the 50ths, the France, that kind of thing. How is blood transported? So with arteries, the force of the heartbeat is enough to get the blood where it needs to go. But now we have a problem. The blood has branched into these arterioles, they've branched into capillaries, and they are literally moving through these capillaries one cell at a time. They have lost that momentum and speed. They're going very slowly now. And if you think of like the blood in your toe, somehow that blood in your toe has to make it all the way up your leg and back to the heart. How is that going to happen? Well, the way it works is the veins are actually located in between muscles in your body. And when you move around, your muscles squeeze that vein. And then there's these valves that basically allow the blood to go one direction, but not the other. So these valves, they kind of open in one direction, but if you try and go the other way, they close. It's a bit like those doors at the gas station. Some gas stations, there's doors where there's only a handle on one side of the door. So if you want to go up, the door will open and you can go through. If you try to go down, though, that door, or valve in this instance, slams shut and you can't go. So basically, as your muscles squeeze the blood vessels, it kind of and it kind of is dependent on the squeezing of the muscles and then those valves preventing it from going back downward. So it's a little bit less efficient getting back to the heart than it is going away from the heart. So to summarize that, blood is transported as veins are squeezed by the surrounding skeletal muscles, and then they contain valves to ensure the blood moves in the proper direction. And you can see that valve right here in this picture. Arteries don't have valves. They don't need them because the force of the heartbeat is enough to get the blood going. Veins are located either deep or superficial. So yes, you have veins that are deep in the body, just like your arteries tend to be located, but you also have them more superficially. For example, if you just look at your forearm, you should be able to see some blood vessels there. The back of my hand, you can see blood vessels in there. Those blood vessels are veins. And the reason why it doesn't really matter if they're deep or superficial, obviously you don't want to cut a vein, but if you do, the blood is moving much more slowly through them, and it's not going to be as big a deal or as dangerous if it gets cut. If you cut an artery, remember, blood is like literally launching. It's squirting out with every heartbeat. If you cut a vein, it's more of kind of a slow ooze that can be slowed down and dealt with. So they can be deep, they can be superficial, it doesn't really matter. So a couple aspects about this that's worth noting. So first of all, your coach. Back when we had coaches and did physical activity as a team, why does your coach tell you to do a cool down after a workout? Well, the reason why is because your muscles during a workout are producing waste products, and you want to have the circulatory system carry those waste products away. Well, as we've seen, to carry those waste products away, your veins have to be squeezed by your surrounding muscles. That's how that blood is going to be moved through. So if you work out and then just drop down on the ground and collapse, you're not squeezing those veins, and the blood isn't moving through quite as efficiently, and those waste products are going to tend to accumulate in your muscles and then contribute to soreness and other issues. So the idea behind a cool down is to keep that blood flowing after workout, to get those waste products to the liver mostly, where they can be broken down and processed. Sometimes you might be told, keep your arms behind your head like that when you're cooling down, and again, that just kind of uses the muscles in your arms as well a little bit to do that. Another application of this, sometimes if you stand in one spot for a long period of time, like if you've ever worked a cash register job where you just stand in one spot for 8 hours, your feet can swell and become really sore. And again, that's because the physical movement of and your muscles squeezing the blood vessels are what move that blood through. So if you're just standing in one place, you're not squeezing that blood through as much, and then it tends to pool up a little bit and accumulate, which causes that swelling and soreness. I remember when I was in high school, I would always work a job, and my shoes always felt really tight at the end of a shift versus the beginning, and I kind of noticed that and thought, wow, that's kind of gross and weird. But then what happens if you can't move? What if you're on bed rest? Well, interestingly, a couple approaches they have for this. One is they might give you pressure socks. And pressure socks basically just squeeze your legs, and that helps limit the loss of fluid from the bloodstream. So if the blood is going to pool, this kind of limits how much it is able to pool, because it can't pool because it can't get out of the blood vessels. So it kind of forces the blood to stay in the veins so that it can eventually go through. They also have machines that they can wrap around your legs that will periodically just kind of squeeze the legs. And that also kind of helps keep the blood moving. In the olden days, maybe still today, I think they would actually have nurses come through and basically give you a little massage. In fact, that's a big part of why massages feel good, is when you're massaging somebody, you're helping to push the fluid through their body and just kind of move things through the circulatory system and get toxins away from cells and back into circulation and things like that. So, but yeah, it's a problem. If you can't move, that is a problem for the blood returning. And so you need to do something about that. There's one final little aspect about blood vessels that I want to mention. There's actually a whole nother system of vessels that never really gets talked about. You've got your arteries, you've got your veins, you've got your capillaries, but then there's this other network called the lymphatic system. And the job of the lymphatic system is to take any fluid that is lost from blood vessels and return it back into circulation. And you might think, wait, I lose fluid from my blood vessels? And yeah, you do. Remember, blood vessels are meant to exchange materials between your cells and your bloodstream. Well, sometimes the material doesn't quite make it into a cell. It doesn't quite make it back into the bloodstream, and the material just kind of accumulates in the surrounding tissue. When that happens, there's this kind of sewage system, so to speak, this lymphatic system, and these are sort of open-ended vessels, that picks up the fluid and then allows it to be brought back and eventually dumped into your bloodstream again. Along the way, it passes through structures called lymph nodes, and you may have heard of these. These tend to swell in your neck. You've got some lymph nodes that swell when you're sick. And the lymph nodes are places, they're scattered throughout your body. It's different in each person where these are. In many cases, the neck ones are consistent among everybody. But when the fluid goes through these lymph nodes, there's immune cells there. And those immune systems sort of look at what's there, scan for pathogens, and then can mount an immune response if necessary. That's why they swell when you're sick. If you're sick, then the immune cells start to divide and replicate so that they can fight off the infection. Now, the reason I mentioned this lymphatic system, it's sort of part of the immune system, really. But what do you think would happen if these lymphatic vessels got blocked off? So imagine that the lymphatic vessel in the leg gets blocked off. So fluid from the arteries and veins leaks out and kind of starts to build up and accumulate, but there's no way to return that fluid. What would happen? Did you say, would the leg swell up? Because if you did, you're right, the leg would swell up. Check that out. There's different conditions that can cause this. Elephantiasis is a parasite that can actually damage your lymph vessels and then prevent fluid from coming through and cause this swelling that, oh man, that looks unpleasant. Or it could just be some other cause of damage. Lymphedema is what it's called, where some other cause damages those blood vessels. But either way, that fluid accumulates and there's no way to get it back. And so in both cases, the treatment really, it's not a fix, it's more of a manage, is to wear those tight compression socks, which will help prevent fluid from leaving in the first place, and then to walk around a lot, because walking around is going to keep squeezing those veins and help as much as possible to get fluid back. But if you damage those lymphatic lymphatic vessels, that's something that needs to be managed throughout life, really. So another underappreciated structure in the human body. So that's it. Next time we'll take a look at naming the blood vessels. So that's it for now.